you can't stay for the whole show. I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that you probably have figured out the economy is very volatile, and you're probably wondering what the heck's going to happen to your savings over the next however long. Maybe you'll get to retire, maybe you won't. But I do encourage you to call my friends over at kirkelliottphd.com, kirkelliottphd.com. Just talk to them about what you can do with your IRA, what you can do with your savings. You might have money that you're trying to protect. They will give you the information that you need about whether you can roll your savings into physical gold and silver. That's right, physical gold and silver. Gold has hit an all-time high recently, but it's actually expected to go up more. Now, I'm not an advisor, but they are. They're licensed investment advisors, and they can give you the rundown. They can look at your entire portfolio. They can help you make that decision. kirkelliottphd.com. Now, we're going to jump into our show here, and we're going to talk to Dave. Dave, you have been busy. You have been incredibly busy. But before we get into that, just welcome back to the show. It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me back on the show as frequently as you have me back on the show.
Oh, it's
Always a
wonderful
joy
to
to
have
talk
you
to you.
here. I'm going to let you talk for just a minute because I've got a little interruption coming off to the side here.
All
You
right,
have a new book out. So
I
tell
do.
our listeners that about your book. I'm going to put it up on the screen and I'm going to
Okay.
minimize myself here for just a
All right.
second. Let me see if I can do this. Ah, where did Dave go? Hold on a second. Wait, guys, my tech person isn't really doing a great job here. Hold on.
Your producer is fired.
Yes, wait just a second. Hold on. Wait, we're coming. Whoa. Okay. Wait. There he is. Okay, now I'm going to put the QR code up if I can. Uh,
Sure you are.
Perfect. Okay. All right. I'm here, but I'm on mute and I love you
All right.
guys. I'll be right back.
All right. Take care of your business, and I'll take care of my business. All right. So that that cover that you're looking at, that book cover, to is it to my left? It's to my left. It might be to your right. Is the cover of our latest book. The book is titled Emergency Preparedness and Off-Grid Communication. This is a book I did not plan on writing, but a friend had a dream at the end of October. And he told me about the dream. And he said he was reading a book on preparedness that I had written. And when I heard the dream, I was like, oh man, I really need to write that book. So it took a couple of weeks in November, wrote this book. I had actually done some pre-writing years ago, 12 years ago. I wrote a few of my ideas down on preparedness, although I had not really thought about off-grid communication at that point. So this book is, we just published it on Amazon, hit the publish button last night. The paperback is now available on Amazon right now. It just became available this morning. I just uploaded the Kindle file, so it'll be available on Kindle on Amazon this afternoon, later tonight, on Saturday the 16th. I uploaded it to the outlets that publish ebooks, so it'll be available soon on Kobo and Nook and Apple Books, all the usual ebook outlets. I would recommend, if you're seriously interested in this subject, if you're seriously interested in the issues of preparedness, off-grid communication, how do we talk to people if we lose internet, we lose cell phone service, we lose power. I would seriously recommend getting the paperback copy and hanging on to the paperback copy, because digital devices are only so useful. And in a grid down situation, lose power, lose internet, it's good to have a printed copy of telephone numbers and especially addresses for people that you need to contact. So the book will be available on Barnes and Noble, and it is available. The paperback is available on Amazon right now. And Mary is back, so we can have a
I'm back.
bi-directional discussion now.
Yes. Thank you for that. There was a like a glue emergency with my dad, so
All right.
we got it sorted out. It looks like Facebook is doing their thing. I don't know if you shared this to your
I
Facebook
did.
page.
I
So
posted it over on my page on Facebook.
yeah, if you're watching on Facebook, do us a favor and just comment like crazy and share this. I did something that made the blue-haired meanies over there big mad. And so they're having a really hard time with my channel right now unless I put up pictures of puppy dogs. So just do your best. If you're on Rumble and you can tolerate opening Facebook just to give us the engagement, I would appreciate that. It's like if you have two devices, just open it and keep it going. That would be a big help. We're trying to get around their weirdness. It's just like I said, they got the algorithm set and something I did triggered them and they're still mad. So there's nothing we can do about that. But except you can help. Just, hit the hearts, hit the likes, do what you can to juice it up and give us engagement over there. We're going to keep going. We're on Twitter, we're on Rumble, we're on Getter. We're just all over the place and we're going to get the word out. So Dave's book, this is amazing because Dave has been doing very in-depth research. And if you've been on the show here in the past year, you've heard him talking about communications. You've heard him talking about ham radio. He's gone into detail. He has a Telegram channel. But like he says, if the communications go out, then the chances of you pulling up that information that you bookmarked on Telegram are zero. And so you're going to want this in a hard copy. You're going to want to go to Amazon, go to Barnes and Noble, wherever he has it available and purchase it. You guys are the first ones to see this book. This is the debut of the book over the
Mary
interwebs.
gets the scoop once again on the latest book.
Yeah, and so this is it, guys. Go tell your friends and get this in your cart and get it ordered so that you will have it. The strange thing, I think, it's not strange if you've been following these people, but the powers that be are telegraphing their concerns that
I like to call them the powers that should not be.
the powers that should not be. Yes,
Uh, it,
this
is it me, or are they telegraphing their game plan like
yeah,
never before?
that there's going to be no more internet, but they're of course blaming it on Trump because everything gets blamed on Trump.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah,
there's
so
this dimwit who used to work. He was a chief of staff for the over at Homeland Security, and he's a raging anti-Trumper. And so whenever the mainstream media wants to get a soundbite from a former Trump staffer, they go to this guy. And he recently commented to Newsweek that he thinks if Trump comes back in the White House, he's going to shut down the internet.
yeah.
I was like, really?
So
Okay.
they give away their plans by projecting it onto Trump because, of course, every bad thing that happens is Trump's fault.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's just very interesting because we know that if something happens, it's probably because of them. And so somebody's asking, Sarah says, I can't find the book on Amazon. Sarah, if you can scan the QR code, do that. I'm going to drop the link in here to reply to you. But
Yeah, put it in the chat if you can.
yeah,
You're
you
not
might.
going to be able to find the book on Amazon for a couple of days by searching for the title because it is
Okay.
that new that it just went live a couple of hours ago,
Yeah.
and it's not in the search algorithm yet. So you're not going to find it by going to my author page. I haven't been able to actually put it on my author page yet. It's that new.
Right.
So
That's where
if
I was
you'll
searching.
only find it if you have a link for the first couple of hours.
This is it, guys. This is exclusive. You're getting the link right here on Mary Grace Media. And so you're going to be the first buyers and hopefully the first reviewers. If you don't have anything good to say, then just send Dave an email and let him know your concerns. It doesn't help to leave a horrible review. But if you want to leave a good review, please, by all means, do that. It definitely helps when you do that. So I wanted to just, again, I want to commend Dave and Denise for just the incredible amount of work and effort that they have put into not only this book, but into everything that they've produced, much of it free. Much of this content that they produce is free because they have such a heart to educate and equip people from all walks of life to walk in freedom and to enjoy and protect the freedoms that we have. So, just a big shout out to you guys for doing that. It's really is a labor of love, and we acknowledge that. I just want to acknowledge it. So, good job, guys. Good job.
Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's, it takes away from some of the things that they would rather be doing as well. It's called work for a reason. And Denise is an artist. She's an amazing artist. And so, she's spending so much time on the books that I
The,
imagine the studio is not getting the attention that it
and by the way,
warrants.
the illustrations in the books, I cannot tell you how many hours in the last 2 weeks she logged
Yeah.
doing those illustrations and redoing the illustrations and asking me about the details and getting all the details
Yeah.
right. Because she's not quite fully up to speed on all of the details and information of an amateur radio like I am. I mean, she's been following me along with for the most part, but she put in an enormous amount of time doing the interior design, formatting for the print book, and the illustrations. So
Yep.
a lot of the credit goes to her.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's the secret sauce.
Exactly, exactly. And we are thankful that Denise went in and redid your illustrations.
Well, my
And hi.
illustrations were okay, but kind of amateurish. Her illustrations are way better.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's just
Yeah,
incredible, guys. So, she's off camera, but 100% involved here. And
yep,
that's just what we love. So, hey
yeah.
Denise. Um,
So
yeah.
so what we were talking about when we started the show, we were talking about all of the news headlines that are coming out
Yeah.
lately, where the cabal seems to be telegraphing their plans. We have the deputy prime minister of the UK, who last week put out a warning to citizens of the UK to buy candles and lanterns and analog battery operated radios because he said we're going to lose our electronic infrastructure and you're going to need those things at some point. And he was very insistent on that. Then you've got, the director of CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Administration. They are the government's cybersecurity agency, and their director, Jen Easterly, is continually putting out warnings about cyber attacks on critical infrastructure from bad actors, Iran, China, Russia, and other countries.
Yeah.
She is sounding the alarm bell. And it's not even a warning anymore. A couple of days ago, there was an article published, and there was a Fox News reported that we are currently experiencing cyber attacks
Yeah.
on water distribution facilities, on power plants, on a number of various infrastructure entities. And it's not, we expect this, it's already happening. They've been doing it for a while. So,
I have a comment here to
yeah,
support
go ahead.
exactly what you're saying. This is on Rumble. Frog Girl is saying, I work for a major telecom company. And so, for those of you who think that we're just kind of throwing this out there and that we've got bigger tinfoil hats today, this is a comment from somebody who actually works in the telecommunications industry. Okay. Unsolicited comment. She says, I work for a major telecom company, and for the past week, they are encouraging employees to download an app in the event of hurricanes or demonstrations. Quote, they are making a huge deal of this, and they never did this during the summer of love of 2020 at all. Remember when they were burning down the cities because of the fentanyl addict that died? What do they know? And then she says, what do they know? And she says, we have a GMRS license at our house because of Dave. So this is a real person. I don't know her. She's just commenting on the Rumble, but this is good. I love seeing these comments because it's organic and it's showing what's happening in people's lives at their jobs. So take it from there, Dave. Sorry to interrupt you. I
Okay.
just thought it
Yeah,
was
no,
really
no.
good
It's
proof.
always good to hear
Yeah.
feedback and testimony from people who are in the know. You know, she has a legitimate issue to bring up, and I think it's relevant to the topic.
Grammy
So,
admin just bought 2 books.
yeah. So, this book, is sort of it covers a lot of the typical topics that you would find in any book on preparedness. So in the book, I cover issues like how to store up food, how to store up water, how to store up, essentials, things that you might, tips and ideas for food preparation in the event that you lose your power. So if you have an electric, stovetop and you lose power, how do you cook food? And what food do you cook?
Hmm.
And what about that refrigerator or freezer that's now
Yeah.
just thawing everything that's been in there? How do you deal with the loss of power? Options for backup power, everything from solar to generators, small generators, large generators. What are the ways they can be used? What accessories and
Yeah.
devices do you need? Extension cords and adapters and things.
Great. That's
Pros and
awesome.
cons of natural gas, gasoline, and propane powered generators versus solar generators.
Wow.
I'm a big fan of solar myself because, well, I live in the Valley of the Sun where
You live in Arizona?
we have sunshine like
Yeah.
320 days a year.
Yeah.
So, and I cover those issues, like how do you make a decision between solar or some other fuel? Uh, Considerations. If I wanted to power a refrigerator or a freezer, how would be the best way to do that? Then there's off-grid cooking. So if you lose electric power and you don't have a generator, do you have a backup fuel for a stove? Now, whether that's a solar stove or a pellet stove, a wood stove, or a propane powered grill, charcoal grill, there's lots of options for food preparation. But then there are issues like, okay, what are you going to do about your dishes, your plates, bowls, knives? If you don't have water, how are you going to wash your dishes? Is there a better option for than normal dishware in a grid down situation, right? So all of the things that go into food preparation, water storage, water purification, different ways to filter and purify water from rainwater, pool water, pond water, water from creeks, streams, rivers, lakes, things like that. How to safely filter and or um, decontaminate water
Wow.
sources,
Wow.
right? So that's just a couple of the chapters, food and water and backup power. If you're looking at thinking about the possibility of putting in a generator to power your whole house, I have step-by-step instructions in the book how to install a generator that powers your breaker panel that would power your whole house. That's in
Interesting.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, and then on the front end of the book, there's a fairly large section that is devoted to helping you identify what threats you might face and how to prepare for those threats. So you live in the East Coast, and I live in the Southwest. We
Hmm.
have different types of natural disasters
Right.
that we could see. I'm never going to see, a strong hurricane
Hurricane.
where I live, but you might. And if you live in Florida, you're definitely going to see a strong hurricane.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you live in, let's say, Western Washington, good chance you're going to see a significant, strong earthquake at some point,
Right.
right? If you live
Okay.
in Oklahoma, you're going to have to deal with tornadoes. So, the first chapter of the book, I go through how to identify different natural disasters and your relative risk profile. What is your threat of
Hmm.
actually experiencing one of those disasters, and how do you mitigate that threat? So the first part of the book goes into
Okay.
what threats are real and what threats are not real for me for where I live. There is a chapter where I discuss situational awareness,
Hmm. How many
and
chapters? How many
it's
total?
got 32 chapters. It's a fairly long book. It's
Okay.
222 pages.
Situational awareness. I like this. I do this a lot.
Situational awareness.
Yeah.
So in a crisis,
Hmm.
a lot of people um, are harmed, physically injured, or killed because they lack situational awareness. They don't know what's going on around them geopolitically. They don't know what's going on
Hmm.
around them weather-wise. I just talked to a friend a while ago, and this friend surprised me with his lack of situational awareness with what's going on currently in the country, geopolitically. There are just some people who are not in touch with what's happening. And especially when you get into situations where there's going to be protests, either
Hmm.
local protests in your city or nationwide protests, if you are not staying up to date on what's happening with protests and civil unrest, and especially if a state of emergency is declared because of widespread rioting, uh, you are likely to be injured or potentially killed in civil unrest because you lacked awareness of what was going on around you. Especially if we get to a point where the government or either a president or the governor declares martial law. At that point, you had better know what's going on, because when martial law is declared, constitutional rights are suspended. You no longer have a right to free speech, freedom of assembly. You no longer have a right to carry a gun. You no longer have a right to a speedy trial by a jury of your peers. You lose a lot of constitutional rights under martial law. And if you're not aware of that, and martial law has been declared, and they say, and the declaring agency says, we are prohibiting protests and demonstrations, and you go downtown and protest and demonstrate, you're going to end up in jail. And
Wow. Yeah.
that comes from a lack of situational awareness. You need to know what's going on around you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then there's situational awareness within your own space around you.
Right.
Like if you walked into a grocery store and you were sort of just mindlessly going about your day, getting your groceries and checking out, you're not looking around, people around you, and you don't notice that
Hmm.
people are sort of stealing things off the shelves, and there's somebody over at a cash register with a gun who's hassling one of the one of the people, one of the employees. You could walk into a situation where you have a gun to your head and not even know what's going on.
Hmm.
That kind of immediate personal situational awareness is discussed in this chapter on situational awareness.
Interesting.
There's,
That's a big one. People walk around with their phones.
yeah,
Just
it's huge.
they walk
Especially,
out in the street, you know?
it's not as critical in normal everyday life, but in a crisis, you have to have your head screwed on straight.
Hmm.
You can't be walking and if we have a situation where we lose internet, lose phone service, people aren't going to be walking around looking at their phones all day long,
Yeah.
mindlessly driving out, walking out into traffic and getting hit by people.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
However, that mindset, of where people are kind of obsessed with what's happening on social media
Hmm.
rather than what's happening in the 50 feet around me,
Right.
that during a crisis, that mindset has to shift, or you're
Hmm.
going to become a victim.
Hmm. It's interesting. This is really interesting, I think, because we really have become a society that is very dependent on other people for making everything okay, and for you know guiding us and telling us what to do. We saw that during COVID, right? Stand here, go here,
Please
wear
make sure you
this.
are 6 feet in front of
Yeah,
from the
do
person in
this.
front of you. Please
Yeah,
pull your
yeah,
mask up over your mouth and
yeah,
nose.
yeah,
Please do this. Please come to the register. Make sure you get your vaccination. Yeah, that they're
yeah,
programming us to tell us everything we're supposed to do, how we're
right.
supposed to react, how we're supposed to think. And we have to get out of that
Hmm.
mindset of even conservative news commentators telling us what to think about what's going on in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. I've been back on Twitter, X, and I couldn't help but run into people who are stuck in that loop of still blaming Trump for the fact that people that they know took a vaccine that wasn't actually FDA approved, and now they're feeling the repercussions of it. And it's interesting to me because no matter what you say, there are people who they want Trump to take responsibility for what their person did. And I think that if people could objectify that thought and apply it to anything else, they would see how illogical that is. I mean, is it someone else's fault that you decided to go to a drive-through every day and just fill your body with crap? Is it someone
Yeah,
else's fault
it's a
that
victim
you
mentality.
right, yeah, is it like are you going to just blame everybody? And some people do. They want somebody else to take responsibility for everything that they do. And I think that what you're talking about here is really good because it's kind of a wake up call to say, look, your life could be at stake here if you don't shift out of that mentality. And it's not the first time we've talked about it on the show,
Yeah.
but you've actually put it in a book, and so that is something that I think is really
Yeah,
helpful. Yeah,
this book is really big on taking personal responsibility for what's happening in your life.
yeah,
So and this is going to shock some people, but there are chapters on home defense and the use of lethal force in self-defense and home defense, use of
interesting.
firearms. I
Yeah,
actually provide a biblical explanation about the use of deadly force in the chapter on firearms.
interesting.
And
Yeah,
this is a thorny issue to a lot of Christians.
yeah, yeah.
So I
It's good.
kind of did my best to bring a biblical worldview on that
Hmm.
issue. And I'm going to have people criticize me, but I brought the receipts.
Yeah.
It's all I quote Jesus and his commission to the disciples.
Yeah, you're good at
So
that. Yeah.
it's in there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so glad to see this. And we've had so far we've had two people on Rumble tell me that they've purchased the book. Grammy bought two books, and we've had 33 people scan the QR code on the screen here. I don't know if that's just Facebook or whatever, but the streaming thing tells me that. So that's awesome. And I did put the link in the Rumble chat and I put it in the Facebook chat. Uh, for now, you just have to go directly with the link that we provide because it just got uploaded this morning. So if you're just getting here and you're thinking, I want to go search the book later, just know that it might not appear right away with a search. You
It may
got to
show
have
up in
the
the
link.
search tomorrow,
Yeah, you got to have
perhaps.
the link.
Yeah.
So we're giving you the link here, guys. And so this is exciting. Something you said about emergency preparedness sorry, about situational awareness. When you first said that, I was thinking about your personal space, and I'm looking forward to reading the book now because you're bringing up a much larger area of awareness, which is what's going on in the country, what's going on in your city, what are the things that would cause you to run into trouble unknowingly. And
Right.
the only thing I can liken it to is where we live, we get snow, right? Snow and ice, and people often will venture out and go driving around who have no business driving in the first place, and then they go driving in ice and snow, and it makes everybody's life miserable.
People
So
reflexively do dumb things
yeah.
during emergencies,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Now you're a medic.
Um,
You have a history as a medic, and I want to talk about this because
yeah.
let's just say that you are the person who has the situational awareness, which is what your job was to have
Right.
that awareness. Do you have recommendations there
Oh yeah.
if you're the only person who's thinking clearly?
Yep.
Can you give us an example of that?
Yeah. So, oh gosh, uh, the when I worked in the ghettos of Milwaukee, long time ago, 30 years ago, just about, we'd go on calls in the ghetto. This was before police routinely responded with us on domestic violence calls.
So it was just your rescue squad, your
So it was
ambulance.
just me and my partner.
Okay.
I'm a paramedic. My partner's an EMT. We do not have guns. We do not have badges. We don't have nightsticks. I would carry a big 5D cell mag light, aluminum flashlight, kind of use it as a billy club if I ever needed to, but I would always have it on my shoulder right here,
Right.
going
Okay.
into these dangerous situations. And the first thing that you need to know about situational awareness in a potentially dangerous situation is don't go into the potentially dangerous situation if you don't have to. I didn't have a choice. Our dispatchers would tell us, you're going here, there's an assault, and that's, all you get. And you go into the apartment, and as you're going in, looking around, looking for people coming and going, uh, looking at people's demeanor, their posture, the things that they're saying. So when I would go into a residence where there was a domestic violence and assault, I would be mentally going through a checklist in my brain. Who is coming in and out of this apartment? Who's leaving? Who's coming in? Are they armed? What is their demeanor? What is their body language saying? Are they
Mm-hmm.
hostile? Are they potentially going to cause an altercation? Are they potentially going to cause a problem with us or the patient? Um, just I would continually be in this mode where I'm looking for potential threats.
Mm-hmm.
Someone is going to react violently, lash out, pull a gun, pull a knife on us or someone else on scene. If it's a family dispute and there's a husband and a wife who are screaming, hollering at each other, are there other people who are going to potentially throw gas on the fire and make it worse?
Okay.
So then there's this issue of, okay, you get out, go outside, leave right now. You're only making things worse. We'll deal with you later. Trying to make a little bit of order out of chaos was kind of what we did.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And like I said, if you have the ability to get out of a potentially dangerous situation, get out of that situation.
Right.
I'll give you a little story. Years ago, when I was working in La Crosse, Wisconsin, there were annual protests there in connection to a festival called Oktoberfest. Oktoberfest is huge in Wisconsin.
Okay.
A lot of the cities have these, 3 or 4 day long festival, and it became a regular annual thing where protesters would come down and they start taunting the police and taunting the fire and EMS services. And one year it got out of hand, and the protesters set a police car on fire and flipped it over. And
Wow.
I was on duty. I didn't have an option about being there. I had to be there. I was on
Mm-hmm.
duty. However, a lot of the people who were there had a choice. They did not have to be there. And one guy who was there, who shouldn't have been there, was trying to break up a fight on a sidewalk. And he ended up getting thrown through a plate glass storefront window. And he got circumferential cuts on his, I don't know if I can show you here, but he got circumferential cuts on both of his upper arms through the bicep. And he had
Wow.
arterial bleeding out of both of his arms. We got there, and this guy had squirting bright red blood coming out of his upper arms. I latched onto this guy and applied direct pressure on
Yeah.
his arms to stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
And my paramedic partner and a couple of friends lifted us up onto the gurney, hauled butt to the hospital to get this guy to surgery.
Yeah.
And fortunately, he didn't die because I was applying direct pressure on
Yeah.
this guy,
Yeah.
on his
Wow.
arms. That goes two places. Number one, in the book, there is a very, very lengthy section on emergency first aid. Burns, everything from burns and bee stings and bites to dealing with fractures, diabetic emergencies, how to stop bleeding, 4 different types of bleeding: internal bleeding,
Mm-hmm.
external bleeding,
Mm-hmm.
some field tricks on how to permanently close up wounds. So there's an extensive section in the book on emergency first aid.
Mm-hmm.
But in the context of situational awareness, this guy that I transported would never have had that injury if he had been somewhere else. And during times of civil unrest and rioting and protesting, yes, it's tempting to want to go down there and see what's happening and maybe be a part of it and maybe make your voice heard. That's a really good way to get injured, and it's potentially a way to get killed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the
That's
things about
good.
situational awareness is, if you have an option, do not be around a place where there is a potential for violence. If you're in a restaurant, for example, and a fight breaks out, the best thing to do is to leave that restaurant. Drop some money on the table, leave your credit card there, get the waitress, pay your bill, get the heck out of there. Because if that altercation in the restaurant turns into, people shooting
Mm-hmm.
or throwing punches, you might become a victim.
Yeah.
So again, situational awareness is largely an issue of knowing what's going on around you, listening to conversations,
Mm-hmm.
observing what's happening, and
Good.
looking for potential threats and ways to get out of a potentially dangerous situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been really trying to train myself to look, to notice everything around me, especially when I go into a crowded place. So you get on a plane, you sit down. Sometimes the first thing people do is put their head in their phone or in the book. But I've gotten in the habit of watching everybody that gets on the plane and just kind of taking a mental
Yeah.
note of who's on the
Well,
plane. Or like when you go to church, you're like, you're in a building with a lot of people crammed in. Um, just start noticing. And one of the things that I learned when I was doing my water safety training, uh, they always teach you, somebody who is in trouble in the water is going to panic, and they're going to use anything they can to climb on top of to get out of the water, including you. And so a lot of drownings happen when somebody goes in the water to try to rescue somebody. They suddenly get this superhuman strength that they didn't have. Even a weak, wimpy little lady might just have superhuman strength because the survival instinct kicks in. And so they teach you reach or throw, don't go. And so you extend something to them, like if you are in a situation where you're rescuing them. And it really lines up with what you're saying is, you know, don't don't be a hero. I mean, in a way, kind of just, you know, really use your judgment and use discernment about what you're going to
yeah.
put yourself into, right?
Yeah. Think about the fact that millions of uh, illegal aliens have been flooding across the southern border now for
Yeah.
the last 3 years. Where do you think those people are going? What do you think they're doing? I am now, I now have a much higher um, trigger for suspicious activity than I did just 3 or 4 years ago. In the city where I live, in Gilbert, uh, in in the year, I think it was 2010, city of Gilbert, 250,000 people. There was not one homicide in the city of Gilbert an entire year.
Yeah.
Last week in Gilbert, 3 teenagers were killed uh, in a violent altercation with about a dozen other
Yeah.
teens. And this is the kind of thing that is becoming more and more common
Yeah.
uh, as young people are being kind of brainwashed by the mainstream media as we're setting
Yeah.
one race against another, one religion against another. They're fomenting all this hysteria and hatred between, supporters of Hamas and supporters of Israel. The culture is being polarized, and that's going to lead people to take more violent action. And that is making me a lot more, eyes looking around when I'm at the gas station, grocery store. My eyes are scanning the parking lot. I'm
Yeah.
looking for anyone who is potentially going to cause trouble, and thinking about what am I going to do if that person approaches me.
Yeah.
Uh, right. So during as society evolves or devolves more and more toward civil unrest and lawlessness, you have to have your head on a
Yeah.
swivel.
Yeah. I've noticed something similar. I don't travel a great deal, but when I do, I often drive, and I travel by myself, and I do have protection. And I I tend to avoid rest areas. I avoid going into places for the most part, especially when I'm by myself. And so sometimes I'll find a spot that I feel is a little bit out of the way where I can just kind of pull over and take a break, maybe walk around, something like that. But something interesting has happened on the last few trips I've taken, and that is that I'll be in a place where I pull up, I kind of look around, and I think, okay, there's nobody around, and then like out of the blue, somebody starts walking toward my car, right?
Yep.
And I'm just like, where did they come from? And so I'm, even though I'm taking a break and I'm sort of mentally not in the car driving, I'm looking around. And the last time this happened, I was on the passenger side and I saw somebody, and it was obvious that they were walking toward my car. And so I, got in the car and locked the car and started the engine. But I mean, it's just, it's bizarre. It reminds me of when I lived in Africa. You would be in places that you thought were just absolutely remote, and you couldn't see anybody around for miles. And then somebody would just like pop up out of the horizon and just start walking. It was
Yeah.
freaky. And that started happening here in
Well,
America.
one of the things that's become a lot more common recently is this tactic that criminals are using, where they'll approach a woman at a gas station and say, "Hey, can you help me? I can't get this gas pump to read my credit card." They'll have an excuse
Yeah.
to talk to you, and they're going to try to they try to play on your humanity, your
Yeah.
kindness. You want to help a
Yeah.
stranger, and so you come over to where they are, and the next thing you know, they've got a gun. They demand your purse, your
Yeah.
wallet, your
Yeah.
credit cards, your cash, your whatever. They take it, jump in the car, and take off. And you're lucky if
Yeah.
they don't assault you. When I did time on a grand jury, I spent 4 months on a grand jury here in Maricopa County, and we heard 400 cases, most of them felony cases. Every single day that I was on a grand jury, we heard a case where someone was at a gas station and they assaulted or killed another person at the gas station, either at the pump or inside the gas station. It is so common. I told Denise, and it almost always happened at a Circle K gas station for some
What?
reason. Well, and the reason why is at Circle K gas stations, they developed a corporate policy where they told the tellers, do not resist anyone who tries to rob you. You do not shoot them. You don't pull a weapon on them.
Yeah.
If someone comes to rob you, give them the money. Just be quiet, be chill, and let them walk out.
Yeah.
So the thieves figured out that they could always knock off a Circle K very easily because
Yeah.
the tellers were instructed not to fight back or do
Right.
anything.
Right. Yeah.
So we saw, I cannot tell you how many robberies and assaults we heard grand jury cases of that
Mm.
happened at gas stations.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Uh,
again, this comes to again situational awareness. It's just
yeah. Yeah.
don't don't become a victim. And when you're at a place like that, be very, very suspicious if anyone approaches you.
Oh, yeah. I had a
You're
situation.
under no obligation
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
help anyone. And if you live in a state where you can conceal carry, you might
Yeah.
consider doing that.
Yeah. Well, that's me. I was driving through Tennessee last year, and I stopped to get gas, and then I walked into the truck stop. And it was one of those places where the cars are on one side and the trucks are on the other, so you can walk through the building. And so I was walking in. I wanted to fill up my water bottle, so I went over to the fountain drink area, and I suddenly turned. Uh, Something just made me turn around, and there was a guy like almost right behind. Like, he was so close to me that he kind of jerked back when I turned around, and then he sort of redirected himself, but it was obvious that he was following me, right?
Yeah.
And I went in the bathroom, and I came back, and he was out over by the bathrooms. And so I went up to the register, and I said in a loud voice, I said, I'm pretty sure that guy is following me. Can somebody, do you have security here? And these and I identified the guy. And so, there were two ladies at the register, and they said, well, no, we don't. And I said, well, I'm just going to stay right here until he leaves. And so he went out to his truck, but didn't leave. And so I went around the building and acted like I was going out the other way, waited, like watched him sitting in his truck, waiting for me because he had seen my car by then, right? And so I went back in. I told the ladies, I said, I need you both to walk with me to my vehicle, and I'm going to get in my vehicle, and then I'm going to leave, and you're going to call the police, but I'm not walking out there by myself. That guy's still out there. So I went out to my vehicle, but before I got in my vehicle, I went up to his vehicle, to the back of his vehicle with my phone, videotaped his vehicle. I was like this. I was like, I see you, right? I mean, you can't back down, And so
Yep.
I had him documented. I had him on video. He left eventually. And then I waited because I thought, well, the next thing he's going to do is sort of wait for me down the road and wait to see me leave and see what direction I go. But it's just that kind of situational awareness where
Yep.
if I hadn't been paying attention, I could have been a victim. And I learned a long time ago, maybe it's because I lived in Africa, but you can't be too careful. In this case, the guy was pretty obvious. But there's a lot of times, ladies, men, when you go into a place like that where you're just oblivious and people are just waiting for an opportunity and you can't let them have it. Make a scene if you need to,
Yep.
but it's just,
Absolutely.
yeah. And,
Absolutely. And
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 maybe,
that's a great tactic. If someone is talking to you in a public location, whether it's a gas station or a grocery store, someone approaches you and your spidey senses are tingling and you think this may be a setup. There are a number of ways that you can deal with that situation. One of which is to get the attention of someone else around you, preferably a large man, maybe who's got a gun, maybe a uniform, and have them come over and just stand there and observe what's going on, or if necessary, have them get involved in what could be
yeah,
a potentially threatening situation. Nothing wrong with asking for help from a stranger
yeah,
if you
yeah.
think
Just
you're
don't
being
pick a
threatened.
soy boy.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to uh, I wanted to segue at some point into emergency communications because
Oh, yeah, we can do that. Yeah. Oh, well, somebody said, I want to talk about this because somebody said an interesting comment. This is on Rumble. Desert Roses said, I purchased the book. I didn't think I was going to need it because my husband isn't keen on prepping, but I figure the basic first aid will be good enough justification. So I want to emphasize this that, Dave has gone, there's 32 chapters here. And so, really, I believe this book is for everybody. I think that if you have a young person in your life, this is a great Christmas present. Get it for them. Just tell them, keep it in your car, whatever you need to do. Read a chapter a week, that kind of thing, chapter a day. Just get through this because, the information here could save somebody's life. It's not just about stockpiling food or water. Go ahead, Dave. And
yeah,
speaking of which, emergency communications.
emergency communications. So a lot of books on preparedness focus on putting food away, whether it's canning or dehydrating or the freeze drying food, how to prepare food in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers,
Yep.
and right, that's kind of the normal fare for books on preparedness. The main focus of this book, I do cover in not in great detail those issues,
Mm-hmm.
but the real focus of the book is emergency communication because I think that's the greatest threat that we're going to face in the next 2 years. The politicians, the media pundits, all kinds of people are signaling that something is going to happen with our power grid, power grids plural, cell phone and internet service. God has been giving me dreams for 3 years, 3 years on those issues, and He's been having me. A year and a half ago, I started, getting into the ham radio uh, spectrum, and there's there's a lot to know about amateur radio. It's a steep learning curve
Yeah.
for someone who is not, especially if you don't have the kind of mind that understands physics and electronics and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, so it was a little tricky for me. I mean, I know guys who are professionally they're electrical engineers,
Yeah.
and they just went in and took their amateur radio test, and boom, 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 they had their test done and they got their license. If you're not that kind of a person, it can be a little bit tricky.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So in the book,
Good to know.
I go through all of the options that I was able to find that provide a means to communicate with people over various distances that do not require cell phone service, internet service, or power, household electrical current.
Wow.
A lot of the devices can be operated on batteries.
Hmm.
In fact, nearly all of them can be
Okay.
operated on batteries. Some of them are actually designed to be operated on batteries. A lot of people would be surprised to know this, but almost all amateur radios do not have regular household 110 extent cords that you plug into an outlet.
Oh.
They have on the back of these radios, they have connection terminals where you connect some wires to a 12-volt source of power, often a power inverter that converts household current to DC, because most amateur radios work on DC current there. So you can easily connect them to a battery
Okay.
and
Okay.
run them off a battery.
Okay.
But having said that, um, so in the book, I start with devices you can use that do not require a license, because a lot of people are just not down with. They're not interested in becoming
Yeah.
amateur radio. They don't want to take
Yeah.
the test, and because to take the amateur radio test and pass it, you're probably going to need to study for most people for a couple of weeks. Pretty intensive study and learning a lot of information that you have is
Wow.
just not intuitive.
Yeah.
So if you're not up to speed and not really desiring to do the amateur radio route,
Yeah.
there are devices you can use that do not require a license. And I'll give you a simple example. A lot of people don't know this, but um, years ago, 20 years ago, roughly, Nextel produced a line of telephones, mobile phones, that had a radio transmitter built into them. And the technology was called Direct Talk. And if you find or purchase some old Motorola radios that have the Direct Talk feature on them, you can talk between parties without cell phone connection, without internet,
Hmm.
but that doesn't even need Bluetooth. You can talk to them using the radio function of these handsets for a distance up to about a mile in kind of normal suburban setting. And
Yeah.
if you're at two positions that are elevated above the terrain,
Yeah.
the distance you could talk is probably 20 or 30 miles.
I remember, wasn't that a big thing during Hurricane Katrina? Was
Yeah,
that?
so it's the phones that had the little push to talk button on the side,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah. I
would
remember
chirp when
that.
you would talk, when you press it.
Okay.
Those phones, you
Yeah.
can still buy them on eBay. I bought 4 of them, and they don't,
Interesting.
yes, they don't require a cell phone
Okay.
service connection. So you don't have to connect it
Oh.
to a wireless
Yeah.
service. You
Oh.
can simply, they do need to have a SIM card in them. And
Okay.
when I bought my phones, they came with SIM cards. So they just have to have a SIM card in them.
That's
You turn them
fascinating.
on, and in the book, I
Yeah.
go through exact instructions, step by step by step by step, from the owner's manual, how to put the phone in direct talk mode and how to talk
Yeah.
to other people on a selected channel, on a private channel, with a security code and all the various options that are in there. Kind of a nice little feature that a lot of people don't know about. In the prepping community, these phones are valued because they're a way to talk off grid. You don't need cell phone service, don't need internet. You can,
Hmm.
if you have 2 or 3 or 4 of these
Yeah.
radios,
Yeah.
and they were very commonly used and still are among construction crews.
Okay.
Um,
I remember seeing those. Yeah.
yeah, so that's just one example of a
Yeah.
radio communication device that you can use. Doesn't require internet, doesn't require cell service. You can buy these phones relatively inexpensively. I think I got mine for around
Hmm.
30 or $35 each.
Okay.
Um, so another
Interesting.
option that does not require a license is a low-powered long-distance radio, LoRa, and the Meshtastic mobile app. And if you want me to show you one of these devices, I can.
Yeah, I think that we talked about it on a
We talked
show
about
a
it
while
previously.
back,
It's a little
and
tiny. It's a little
yeah,
radio. It's about four
yeah,
inches long.
I
It's
want to
it's
see
actually
it.
just a little. Um, it's a printed circuit board
Yeah, it's really cute. Can you show it
with
to
a
us?
USB port, a little LCD screen. It
Yeah,
has a little antenna on it, and they run a very low power, like a
yeah.
quarter of a watt. They don't consume a lot of electricity, and they transmit on the 915 megahertz band, which does not require a license.
I think you
And
showed it to us.
using the
Yeah.
Meshtastic mobile app, you send text messages back and forth between people who are using these radios and the app. Another way that you can communicate with people doesn't require internet service, doesn't require a license, doesn't require cell phone service, just a low power radio. And I have tested these radios and successfully transmitted messages at a distance of 23 miles.
Wow.
And that was the farthest distance I could go where I had direct line of sight between the radio that I was trying to communicate with. The drawback with all UHF radio devices is if there's hills in the way, if there's
Okay.
a big area of trees or buildings in the way, you're going to have problems. For UHF radio communications, you need to have clear line of sight between you and the party that you're communicating with. But in a crisis, you have to adapt, improvise, and overcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which may mean if you're in an urban area
Get on the roof.
and you need to communicate with somebody, and you know they're like 3 miles away, but there's trees and buildings in the way, you can say, oh, hey, you know what? There's this hotel right over there, and it's a 13-story hotel or 15-story hotel. I'm going to go up. I'm going to take the elevator to the top floor and go to the top of the hotel, and I'm going to transmit from the top of the hotel, and I know I'll be able to hit them from there. Sometimes in a crisis, you have to just use lateral thinking
Yeah.
and try to come up with a creative solution to the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. It's good.
Uh,
That's really good. Yeah.
so
Wow.
in addition to these devices, then there are other devices that are more kind of standard traditional handheld radios that you can use.
Mm-hmm.
Some of which require a license, some do not. You can use radios that are in the Family Radio Service FRS designation. Inexpensive radios. They don't have a lot of power, but again, if you need to talk to people in your neighborhood, FRS is actually a pretty good way to go. Doesn't require a license, inexpensive, not really high powered.
Mm-hmm.
Another option is MURS, the MURS, multi-use radio service, MURS.
Okay.
MURS radios use a set of 5 frequencies,
Mm-hmm.
and they're limited to 2 watts of transmitting power.
Yeah.
Again, not a lot of power. You're probably good with a range up to about a mile. But again, if you want to talk to people locally within your neighborhood, or a couple of neighborhoods away, a mile or two, if depending on the terrain, it's a good option. Does not require a license. Another option that a lot of people don't think about is marine radio. Marine radio,
Right.
you can use marine radios with power up to 20 watts. There are a number of different radios, both handheld and mobile radios, that you can use on the marine band. That with a 20-watt receiver, you can actually transmit a pretty good distance, 15, 20 miles, maybe 30 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're getting into more power and better distance. Again, marine radio
Okay.
does not require a license, and you do not have to be on a waterway to use marine radio. Anyone can use it.
That's interesting. And we actually have friends who went with that route up in
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, right? Yeah. Yeah. So this is so good. I hope that people are taking notes, but even more importantly, I hope people are getting the book because all of this is going to be in the book. But if you're just tuning in, we're talking about Dave's book on emergency preparedness and off-grid communications. And this is hot off the presses. Literally, he just uploaded it to Amazon today.
I don't
And
even have a copy of the book.
so yeah, I don't either. And the QR code is up on the screen. The link is in the chat on Rumble, and it's also in the chat on Facebook. And I noticed that Maggie on Facebook is tagging people. This is good. Please tag people that you feel could benefit from this information, because that is how they're going to get it, especially on Facebook, because they're kind of big mad at me right now and they're not really showing me in the feed. So just tag people, send it in a message. This is information that really could save your life and the lives of your loved ones. And it is the most up-to-date information you can get for emergency preparedness based on today's environment, on what's going on today, digitally, environmentally, electronically, and all of those things. So you may have a book that was published in the 90s or the 80s. The landscape has changed tremendously since then. So it's definitely time for an update. And for those of you who don't know Dave's history, he is a medic. He's a trained medic and spent many years in that field. And so he does have some expertise and knowledge from which to broach this subject. And so it's just tremendous that we have him here with us to debut this book and to get it into your hands first. From the looks of things, I think that we have had a number of people purchase the book just while we've been talking. So that's fantastic. This is going to be an incredible Christmas present too, for people that you love and care about. It's fantastic. Oh, this is interesting. Somebody on Rumble just said, we live in Columbus, Ohio, and we've had at least 3 times this school year where our entire greater Columbus area had no internet or no cell phone coverage. No, she said our schools use internet phone line services. So just a complete blackout of that. And
Yep.
just yesterday, we had no internet all day long, I noticed. So, yeah, it's just and a lot of it's infrastructure, and our infrastructure is so old and it's really crumbling. And a friend of mine was just recently in Europe, and he was commenting on how much better the transportation is, the light fixtures, so many things that are so much better. And it's interesting because everything you're talking about, whether it's the communications, the infrastructure, the preparedness, the situational awareness, these are things that President Trump has been talking about for years. And he definitely talked about this in his during his presidency and addressed infrastructure. And of course, he was called all kinds of names for that. And anytime he says "Make America Great Again," he's talking about like fixing all this stuff and making our infrastructure so that it can't be sabotaged, and so that it's not in a position of what happened in Puerto Rico in the last big hurricane they had. I think it was Hurricane Maria, where the entire power grid was decimated because they hadn't kept it up to date. And they
Same thing
tried to
with
blame
South
Trump for that.
Africa. South Africa's power grid is a disaster.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's no reason for that.
Right. Yeah. And that's what's known as it's not a third world country. It's a developing nation. And, we're supposed to be the bright, shining city on a hill here in America. And everything is just falling apart. It's completely crumbling not because we don't have the means. I mean, we've sent enough money to Ukraine, to buy Zelensky a mansion in Florida. And we could have been using that money to work on repairing and restoring
Right.
our infrastructure.
Think about all the money that
Yeah.
goes in foreign aid to corrupt
Yeah.
dictators,
Yeah.
to prop up their oligarchies, the money that goes into the Defense Department, trillions of dollars of which disappear and are
Yeah.
unaccounted for. Like, imagine what
Yeah.
we could do for our country if that money was spent properly. It's really kind of
Yeah.
sad to think about
I
it.
found out that we're actually financing just the month-to-month operations of Ukraine. So we're not just
Yep.
financing the war. We're
Their
actually,
pensions, everything.
yeah, we're keeping that whole country running. It's like the 51st state, except they're getting even
Yeah.
more money than the states get.
It
It's
is.
something's very fishy about that. But let's see. Tina just bought the book on Facebook. Thank you, Tina. That's awesome. Oh, somebody just said Zelensky bought 2 yachts as well because one isn't enough.
Right.
He's just rubbing it in our faces. But in the meantime, we are resilient. We're Americans. Some of you are Canadian. I've got listeners from all over the world, and you are a resilient bunch. And so I encourage everybody to get this book. For those who may be in a position where maybe you're overseas, you can't get the hard copy, whatever, there is a digital copy coming. And so, worst case scenario, you download it and you print it out if you need to do that, or print out the chapters that you feel are relevant.
Yeah, that's
Um,
another option.
yeah, so you figure it out if you can't get the hard copy, but ideally you're going to get the hard copy. That's what the whole point of this is, and that's why Dave put the hard copy up first onto Amazon. At least I think that's why he did it. So, okay. Dave, anything else you want to add about
Yes.
preparedness? Okay, go ahead.
So, in addition to a variety of devices you can use to communicate with friends and family over short distances that do not require a license, there are options for communicating over short distances and long distances that do require a license. So, as the book continues going further and further into the radio realm, if you are willing to pay the FCC, if you live in the United States and you're willing to pay the FCC $35, they will give you a license to operate on the General Mobile Radio Service, GMRS, which is a small segment of the UHF spectrum. It's divided into 22 channels. And you can then use handheld radios that are 5 to 8 watts, or you can use mobile radios that are up to 50 watts. And I've got a mobile radio right there. When I say mobile radio, I'm talking about a relatively small radio, generally designed to be used in a vehicle, but you can also use them at home. And a lot of people just turn a mobile radio into a base station. So they
Okay.
connect it to an antenna that's mounted on their house somewhere and communicate that way. My 50-watt GMRS mobile radio will connect me to repeaters that are 100 miles away.
Wow.
100 miles. That's a pretty long distance. Now, I'm connecting to a repeater that's on a 5,000-foot mountain. So, again,
Okay.
line of sight. When we start getting into GMRS radios and amateur
Hmm.
radios, we're talking about repeaters. A repeater is essentially a radio that retransmits the signal of another radio. So in most urban and suburban areas, there are a variety of types of repeaters that are available for public use. If you live in an area that has a population of more than, I would say, 25 or 30,000 people, there's probably a GMRS repeater in your
Okay.
town. And if there is a GMRS repeater in your town that is open to the public, you could probably make contact with that repeater with either a handheld radio, if it's within about 10 miles, 10 or 15 miles. You could
Hmm.
probably connect to that repeater with a handheld radio. And if you can, that repeater will greatly extend the range of your handheld radio. Most handheld radios, the typical distance you're going to get with most of them is about 3 or 4, 5 miles, depending again on the terrain. But if there is a repeater nearby and you can connect to that repeater, you
Okay.
can you can significantly increase your distance. And I'm spending some time on this because a lot of people want to know, what could I use to communicate with my brother, my sister, my kids? They live 15 miles away on the other
Hmm.
side of town.
Okay.
This is one way that you could
Got
potentially
it.
communicate with them if they're willing to get the radios, willing to learn how to use them, willing to get the license. By the way,
Hmm.
you get a GMRS license, right? There's no test required to get the license.
Okay.
You simply pay $35 to the FCC. They give you a license and a call sign. That license covers you and your immediate family and anybody else you designate under that license.
Oh, okay. So
So
you're
you could put everybody in your neighborhood on your GMRS license if you wanted to.
okay.
Um, right. So one license can cover a
Yeah.
number of people.
Okay, good. Good.
And
Now, if
then
I have one
go ahead.
question, so when you're ready,
Yeah.
if you want to have a repeater at your location, do you
Yes.
talk about that in the book?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I actually have a GMRS repeater. I have a mobile repeater, GMRS repeater. It's
Mhm.
about that big. It's this tall. It's about 6 inches tall, about 8 inches long, and about 2 inches wide. And it is battery operated. And I can take that thing mobile. I can put it anywhere I want,
Oh,
connect it up to a 12-volt battery. Actually, I
okay.
think that thing runs on 8 volts. Connect it up to a battery and an antenna, and I can then have a mobile GMRS repeater. Put it up on a rooftop, put it at an elevated location, right? So some repeaters, you can purchase them. Some you would
Hmm.
want to use other people's, publicly available repeaters.
Right.
Let me say this, couple of things. There are in the Southwest United States, there is a GMRS repeater group. They have purchased and they maintain a bunch of repeaters that connect through the internet, unfortunately, mostly. Repeaters that go from northern Arizona through New Mexico all the way through Texas down to Houston.
Wow.
Now, because they're connected by the internet, right now you can use them to communicate uh, using a GMRS radio
Hmm.
to people all over the place.
Okay.
During an internet outage, any nodes, any radios that are connected by internet would not be able to
Okay.
connect to each other.
Okay.
And here's another thing. I talk about this in the book too. Although people who use GMRS and amateur radios rely a lot on repeaters to do local communication
Hmm.
in a situation where the power grid is down, those repeaters, a lot of them are not going to have power unless they have backup power.
Okay.
So it's not uncommon for a radio repeater to have backup power, either a diesel generator, gas generator, but there's only so long that these repeaters are going to be functioning in a grid down situation if
Okay.
their fuel is not available or the person is not able to go and fuel up the generator, whatever. There are a couple of, I know one for sure, repeater in the Phoenix area that is solar powered.
Oh,
The,
okay.
the
Okay.
guys just installed a solar panel battery
Hmm.
combination. They've been running this repeater for 8 weeks
Oh, wow.
purely
Okay.
on solar. It's not connected to the grid. It only
Wow.
runs on solar power.
So somebody like me, I have this antenna that is left over from the old TV antenna days. And
Yeah,
when they redid our roof, they said, "Do you want me to take it down?" I said, "No, I might need it." And so it's really tall. Is that something that like I could put
could
a
be
repeat?
repurposed. Uh,
Yes.
it yes, potentially it could be repurposed. Depends on what that antenna was used for.
Uh-huh.
Was it used for TV reception? Probably.
Yes, it was, but like even could we just use it as a mast to attach a
Oh,
repeater to?
absolutely,
Okay, because
absolutely. Yeah. So
it's really
there,
high.
yeah, there will be a mast on your roof that antenna is then bolted
Okay.
to, and you can use that mast for a radio
Yeah.
antenna.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah,
And I
it's
would
still
look
there.
into that if I were you.
Yeah, yeah, and we have a nice roof area that could,
Yeah.
power it solar. So it just, yeah, I was like, I had a feeling I might need that. So
Yeah, it might come in handy.
they wanted to take it away. I was like, no.
So before we go, I wanted to
Yeah.
just highlight three more things.
Okay.
In addition to the discussion of ways you can communicate off grid with, using various devices that do not require a license,
Mm-hmm.
GMRS is one that
Yep.
requires a license, but there's no test. It's pretty easy to get up the curve on that.
Yeah.
Then there's amateur radio. So in the book, several chapters are devoted to amateur radio, what it is, how to get licensed,
Okay.
how the equipment works, how to build your own antenna,
Good.
how to, or if you're
Wow.
looking at purchasing antennas, some suggestions. I have suggestions for radios that you might want to
Sweet.
buy as well. in all of these sections and chapters that I
Wow.
cover, I have suggestions for buying equipment.
Good.
Amateur radio, lots of information on amateur radio, how to communicate with people in other countries and around the
Mm-hmm.
world
Mm-hmm.
using amateur radio, and different ways to build and deploy antennas for different purposes. And then there's another section that goes into discussion of digital radio modes,
Okay.
because a lot of people don't understand that you can use um, digital technology to sort of encode your radio traffic so that it's a little harder for people to eavesdrop on your conversations. Some of the radio modes that I'm talking about allow encryption.
Oh, okay.
So I discuss various modes of communication that can be
Okay.
encrypted and how to encrypt them.
Okay.
And then there is, I have a chapter on communication security.
Okay.
When you're potentially operating in a hostile environment.
Oh, you've thought of
And
everything.
the
That's
last
so good.
chapter,
Yeah.
the last chapter is a chapter that describes how the kingdom of God responds to crisis. So, having gone through
That's
all of
good.
the ways you can prepare,
Yeah.
store up food, store up water, have solar
Yeah.
backup power, have your radio communications. I got my first aid kit, got all my stuff. The last chapter is a gentle reminder that you will not be able to prepare for every situation. You just
Mm.
won't. I don't care how much money you have, how
Yeah.
much stuff you buy,
It's
you're
good.
not going to be able to prepare for every situation.
Good. Yeah.
You're not going to have the car parts when your car breaks down. You're not going to have enough bread in your pantry to feed your neighborhood. However, God is not limited by our finite resources, and God can multiply food. He can supernaturally fix cars and electronic
Yeah.
devices. I expect that there are going to be people who will have internet service when no one in their town has internet service. I expect people are going to be sending text messages to their relatives when nobody in their town is sending text messages to their relatives.
It's good.
I believe the supernatural kingdom of God is going to empower us to do things that are physically impossible.
That's so
So
good. That's a great way to end it. That's just
so that the
fantastic. Yeah.
last chapter is maybe the most important chapter,
Yeah.
because it's just a reminder that
Mhm.
God is not limited, and
Yeah,
and
that's
and
great.
He wants us to do greater things than we can imagine. So
Hmm.
I'm going to land it there.
Well, I want to, well, speaking of landing, I want to ask you about Elon Musk and Starlink and Satlink
Yep.
with regard, and so how that comes into play, because he posted something recently about that, about being able to avoid any outages, that people would be perpetually connected.
Yep.
Uh, can
For cell phone service.
Yes, for cell phone services. So can
Yeah,
you speak to that a little bit?
I
I
can.
know you follow him. So
Yep.
yeah.
So I'm going to rain on a few people's parades. Uh, and I'll briefly discuss how satellite communication works. I purchased a satellite communicator, a Zoleo satellite communicator,
Yeah.
because my kids live more than 1,000 miles away, and they're not going to get amateur radio licenses. So I want to be able to communicate with my kids in the event that we lose cell phone service.
Hmm.
Satellite communicators are a good backup option to mitigate the possibility of losing cellular service.
Okay.
If your cell network goes down, whether it's Verizon, AT&T, whatever, if you lose cell phone service, having a satellite communicator is a good backup plan. Here's where it gets a little bit sticky.
Okay.
Right now, as we currently speak, those messages that are you receive and send through your satellite communicator, they go through ground-based internet servers. So as long as the internet servers are working, if your cellular service is not working, you can communicate using a satellite communicator because the messages are still going to be sent by ground-based internet servers. If, however, there is a outage that takes down ground-based internet servers, those satellite communications are not going to go through. I talked to a tech support person at Zoleo to confirm this.
Okay.
And the guy basically said, in a widespread internet outage, you're not going to be sending satellite messages on our network. It's not going to work because they go through ground-based internet servers.
And that's true of Elon's
That's true of
system.
Starlink too. What a
Okay.
lot of people don't realize is there's a lot of people who are thinking Starlink is going to be the way that the Space Force is going to work with Starlink, and they're going to have this proprietary internet that doesn't
Yeah.
require anything else, and it'll be working if they take down the internet. No, it won't. And here's why.
Okay.
Because Starlink has the same structure that these other satellite communicators use.
Okay.
Your receiver that you use to receive signals from Starlink it's a satellite-based link. You
Okay.
put out your little receiver out in your yard. It
Hmm.
receives signal from the satellite. It
Right.
sends and receives, transmit signals
Yep.
by a satellite.
Yep.
You're the end user. Your signal comes to you via satellite. However,
Okay.
the signals that come to the satellite go through ground-based internet servers.
Got it.
All of the internet information, the emails, all the website information, if you want to go to somebody's website, if you want to go on Twitter, you want to go on Facebook, whatever, all of that data is transferred through ground-based internet servers.
Okay.
And if the ground-based internet servers go offline, that information is not accessible to anyone,
Okay.
even if they have a satellite internet service. So
So that's like an
until
intermediary kind of, I
yeah,
guess.
until Elon
Okay.
can put all of his hardware in space, right? Once Elon has enough servers
Yeah.
in space that hold the data and can transfer the data back and forth
Yep.
without use of ground-based internet servers. Once he has the ability to do that, then he has a system that is resilient to attacks on terrestrial
Hmm.
servers.
Hmm.
But that's not how it works right now.
Okay. Got
So,
it.
I hate to be the wet blanket, but right now, satellite communication is not a workaround for a widespread internet outage. It
Okay.
just doesn't work that way.
Interesting. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked that question. Wow, that's very interesting. If Goodness gracious, this is a lot to take in. It's
Yeah.
just the book is. I mean,
Honey, you have no idea how,
so
how involved this stuff
so
is.
many people have bought the book, and I don't want people to get scared by that because Dave is such a good communicator, and he has broken this into chapters that are accessible. You don't have to read the whole book in one sitting.
No, you don't.
You can
And
go through.
you do not want to read this book in one sitting
Yeah.
because your brain will explode.
So
It's
think.
best to go one chapter at a time, digest the information,
Yeah.
and if there's anything helpful in it in a chapter, make some notes.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
there are action steps in every single chapter, whether it's taking your friends and family and writing down their physical street addresses,
Yeah.
or there's a chapter on how to navigate without GPS. For those of you who do not know how to navigate using north, south, east, and west and a map, I have an entire chapter that it describes how to navigate by map,
Wow.
how to find a street on a map, how to find a city on a map, and how to navigate. Step by step, all the information you need that I reasonably think the average person would need if we lost power, lost internet, lost cell service. There are very practical steps in every chapter where you should just spend some time focusing on that information and asking yourself, okay, am I able to do this right now? And if I'm not able to do it, can I get myself prepared to do it?
Okay. Good. Yeah. Yeah. So just take it in yeah.
It's a made simple book. Like that's just how I write. I take concepts that are kind of abstract and difficult, and I break them down into layman's terms and give practical tips on how to do this. Um, so
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no reason to be intimidated or frightened by all this stuff. And I recommend in the book, but I would just recommend this generally: never do anything out of fear. Fear is not of God. Fear is a tactic of the enemy. If you're feeling
Good.
fearful, if you're feeling anxious, don't do anything at that time. Pray and ask God to give you peace, and ask Him to give you clear steps you can take and a clear understanding of what you need to do, because not everyone needs to take all the steps in the book. God is telling some people to prepare in certain ways, and He's telling
Right.
other people to prepare in different ways. And He is telling some people,
It's
you don't
good.
need to worry about any of this stuff because He's going to take care of them supernaturally in all things.
Wow.
So it's not a one size fits all proposition. God is literally telling some people, don't worry about the power grid, don't worry about the cell phone stuff.
Hmm.
I'm going to supernaturally transport you places. I'm going to make you able to communicate people supernaturally. Some people have that revelation from God that He has a specific way that He's going to supernaturally address the lack of connectivity in the future. But other people, me specifically, God has been telling me, do this, learn about this,
Yeah. Yeah.
get this radio, learn how to use it. He's giving me specific instructions. So
Right.
not everything in the book is applicable to everyone.
That's good. And, you know, one of the things that I love about you, Dave, and about having you on the show is I get approached a lot by people who want, you know, to have somebody on, have themselves or a friend on the show. And I turn some down because I don't sense a message of hope with the alarmist message.
Yeah,
And it's just so important that we have that hope that, you know, it's, you know, don't be scared, be prepared. And this is just so important because as we go into this next year, it's going to be a wild ride. And there are many people who will capitalize on the ability to string you along in a state of fear. And when you are afraid, all of my listeners, this is important. When you're afraid, you make stupid decisions because your ability to reason and discern is gone. And that's
right,
why they were able to manipulate so many people to do ridiculous things during COVID, is because they tapped into that fear center. And the Bible says we've not been given a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. And so it is truly, it's up to you to take the responsibility to not to click on the panic porn, not to get that dopamine hit with the latest doom and gloom story about how horrible everything is, but to take responsibility, get the book, read the book, pray, make sure you really meditate on the last chapter of what God, and just ask God what He wants you to do, and not run around, you know, yelling about the sky falling.
right.
Because you're not a help to anybody when you do that, and that's just a really critical message. And that's, again, that's why I have Dave on the show. Yes, he's telling you some things that could be alarming, but he's giving you a roadmap, uh, practically and spiritually, for how to navigate that. And that is just a tremendous gift to all of humanity.
Do you want to talk about AJ?
No, I want to skip that for now because
All
I
right.
think I think I want to land this plane and let people digest this 90 minutes of incredible content that we've had. Now, you and I have talked about getting more people over on X and firing up a space, which is the sort of clubhouse audio chat feature that they have over there. So, why don't we plan on doing that? And I want to encourage all of my listeners, and then we can talk about more of the political stuff. Everybody that's listening now, if you're not on my mailing list, I encourage you to get on the mailing list. Go to marygracemedia.com. That is where you will get notification when we go live, whether it's on video, whether it's over on X doing a spaces conversation, whatever we do, you will get an email shortly before or at the time that we go live, so you don't have to rely on those notifications. The other thing you will get at my website is links to all of my affiliate partners. And I really want to urge you to go and click on the shopping link and go and find what you need over there, whether it's for Christmas gifts, for your own personal shopping. The one thing I want to urge people is to get superfoods. Go to the superfoods link and stock up on the highly nutritious foods that we have over there. Any of the shakes that come in pouches, any of the super aminos, you can survive on our superfoods with just pure water. You don't even have to cook. And you're going to get, with my promo code, Mary Grace Media, you're going to get anywhere from $50 to 25% off your order, just depending on how much you order. And your first order, you also get free shipping. So I really encourage people to take a look at that. This is the time to start stocking up. You just don't know what's going to happen. And again, pray about it. Look at your budget. There's all kinds of programs they have where you can earn rewards points when you buy so that you can get free product. But I just want to emphasize that today, since we're talking about preparedness, the two things, your food and your money, and then of course your communications. So go to my website, marygracemedia.com, get the superfoods, get on the mailing list, contact my friend Kirk Elliott, PhD, about your money, about stockpiling some silver and gold. And that is probably going to get you squared away for now. I hope we'll get Dave on a space over on X soon. And he's definitely always welcome to come back to the show, of course. And I just want to give a shout out to my Facebook audience, because everybody has done a great job today of engaging and doing comments and likes and things like that. So I think you're helping us break through the craziness over there. And also on Rumble. I haven't forgotten about my Rumble people. You guys are awesome too. Dave, last thing, just very quickly, what's the easiest place for people to find you online and to just get links to further information?
I have a link tree.
Oh.
If you go to my website, pragmatic.com, there are tabs at the top, and there's also portals on the page that have links to my podcasts, articles, books, classes, even my audiobooks. And if you go to the, articles and videos section, and then click on an article or video, in the sidebar, you'll see a link tree, little link there. And you can click on my link tree link, and it'll have links to all of my channels, all my social media accounts and links. I'm most active right now on Telegram still. I'm on Twitter at Pragmatic. I'm on Facebook. I have a page there. But I'm most active on Telegram. We have a lot of channels on Telegram. You know, we talk about dream interpretation. There is a channel on health and nutrition. There's a GMRS and amateur radio channel. There's all kinds of different specific channels that we have on Telegram, and that's where we hang out. And people, get their prayers answered there, and we post a lot of healing testimonies and have all kinds of interesting discussions there on Telegram. So,
excellent.
There
Excellent. You go. Yeah, Dave is pretty much everywhere on the web. I think Rumble might have gone down. I can't get it to load. Yeah, so I think the show will be there. So anyway, maybe people are going to come from Rumble to Facebook after all. Listen, and if you're on Twitter, if you're listening on Twitter, please do me a favor and retweet it. I'm on my backup account over there, so it's a small account, and we're doing the best to get the message out over there and to get some traction. So everybody, I'm just so grateful for you for being here. Thank you for following the channel. Thank you for all of the new followers on all of my platforms. It's very much appreciated. Thank you for supporting our affiliate partners. That's a tremendous way to keep this channel going, to keep the lights on, keep the internet going, all of those things. And the other thing I want to remind you is that I do have a show coming up Monday. I think it's 11 a.m. Eastern. But if you're on my email list, you'll get a notice before we go live. So it's marygracemedia.com. Scroll to the bottom, join the email list. That's the easiest way. Everybody have a wonderful day. And Dave Hayes, Praying Medic, it's always a pleasure, an honor to have you here. And I look forward to doing another show with you and possibly a X Twitter space very soon. Everybody take care. Have a wonderful weekend and many blessings as we go into this last week of Advent with expectation of our Lord's coming.